Well, as I get ready to get into camera view, I guess I'm going to explain that from my pea-brain understanding, everything I'm about to share with you could be considered a violation of my probation and or my bail, because I am voicing my opinion. And in Clark County, Washington, Vancouver, you could be arrested for violation of a probation and or bail by simply voicing your opinion. So I'm going to put that out there first, because I think that is a crock of shit. But what I'm going to tell you tonight are truths, facts of matters. And fact of the matter is, in about a week, yours truly could be facing 2 years in prison. And the interesting thing is if I do face any time at all, or more than 2 years, I will be put in solitary confinement by medical means. My medical history will define that I am required by their legislative procedures to be placed into solitary confinement. No TV, no radio, no pencils, no pens, no papers, no books, and well, my sanctuary in so said types of manners when I'm not allowed to be around Nog, i.e. if I'm imprisoned in Clark County's prison. Now let's get that right. All forms of imprisonment and their facilities are called prisons. They are different levels of prisons, such as a jail and or a holding facility. But Clark County is still a prison. So under Washington State policies and procedures and practices, which violate religious decree that is also applied to inmates or prisoners, let's get this correct, because in Clark County we call it your end of days or your last days when you go to trial, which is kind of befitting because, well, they do not have in any way, shape, or form, in my feeble mind, a corrective practice and process for inmates or prisoners confined in their prison. In fact, it is vastly more towards creating greater, smarter, and less impenetrable criminals. And the sad thing is Clark County has really opened up to do right for drug addicts to do whatever they want, however they want, and don't realize that they have also invited child sex offenders and child sex traffickers into our home because they do not want to deal with the addiction populace. So the more that we do not supply our addicts with quality, clean, safe, non-sex trafficked or identity stolen drugs, we fill our jails full of those that are filling their coffers, which drives me nuts, considering that I was housed next to 10 of them for half of my stay there, and the other half I was housed with, housed in solitary confinement with other ones. And my only sanctuary from them would have been the Bible, because I was not allowed my service animal. And they told me that the Bible in my hands is considered a deadly weapon, and that I am not allowed the Bible in auditory form or in a tangible book reading form. Now, I want to ask you, because I have a few of them to show you, and I would like to understand if anybody who so chooses to watch one of these videos would like to give me their input about this. How this one And I know for you on Facebook you can't see it, but it's a New Testament Psalms and Proverbs pocket version. The Book of Mormon, Captivas, the Living Notes, Brazilian New Testament. I'll be very gentle with this one when I show you. It means a lot to me. The NIV Study Bible. That one's kind of hard, so I might kind of understand that one a little bit. You know, that one's kind of hard, so I might understand that one a little bit. NIV Holy Bible. Might give you a nice bruised ass. Some ladies might like that. 1937's Holy Bible. I would never want to ever attempt on abusing anybody with this thing. I think it would fall apart upon contact. Then I would lose my scripture. This is brand new. I just bought this one. This is a 2020. Nice leather, red leather. I like it. Now this one's might give you a bruised ass. Maybe if you swung really, really fucking hard, but you don't have much room, you might be able to knock yourself out with it. But I kind of highly doubt that. So I don't understand how that's a deadly weapon. This is one of my first Bibles. It is a fairly big Bible. Take a lot of momentum to even swing the thing. But again, I think it would fall apart upon impact of any sort. I don't understand how these, in their physical form, present much of a concern except for this hardback. And again, it would take a lot of room. You might be able to knock yourself out with it. But yet, in my feeble mind, I don't see choking it down my throat or anybody else's. None of these I see being able to have that potential. By the time a guard could get into the room to stop myself from hurting myself or potentially anybody else. But then again, like I said, solitary confinement, 23 hours a day, no TV, no books, no pens, no pencils, nothing but 24 hours a day light. Now, you might say, well, you know, are you just doing this for show? No. I find a lot of happiness in these books, and every one of them is written different. Every one of these is the same book, slightly variated from one another, slightly tell a different story than one another, and vastly increase my imagination and heal me from things that medication cannot. And while in confinement, they force medication down my throat without my approval by force of threaten. You either take this medication or you never leave this cell. That is a threat to my life. It is a threat to my safety, my sanity. It is a threat to all of you who I live among. Because as a corrective institute, they have now told me what is right and what is wrong and what is allowed and what is not. And that is to remove something non-deadly and force you to take a medication for your freedom. They told me that that is okay to treat you all in the same way. And in less than a week, I found out if I get to go back into that hellhole where all of this will once again be removed from me and have medication shoved down my throat. And they tell me I'm crazy because I would rather read the good book, smoke weed, than take psychotics that make me go nuts. This is what I have to look forward to. I filed a complaint against the jail. I tried filing a grievance with the jail, with the commanders, with the sergeant in charge. I've tried filing a kite. By the time I was allowed to use a computer, I was so distraught, I didn't know what I was doing. I tried asking for help from the only person that would accept my phone calls. And I was mocked and laughed at. Nobody would listen to me. And then when I finally got myself bailed out, my complaint was no longer accepted as a complaint. It was now required to be what is called a tort, which is an insurance filing against the jail. And I wrote 18 pages trying to explain and elicit what happened and what was going on and what was wrong with it and why my grievances weren't heard. And again and again and again, they said it was because of national emergency COVID as to why they were getting away with what they were doing, and removing the Holy Bible for me is the least of what they did. And the most at the same time. Because I probably could have endured everything that they put me through while I was there if I would have been given that sanctuary. I probably could have held my own a lot longer. I probably could have been a better product to the courts when handed to them. Because you are product and property as a prisoner of Clark County when you are to appear before court. And as a product and property, a prisoner of Clark County, I was not treated in such a manner. I was bullied, I was tortured, I was mocked, I was humiliated. I was removed every civil human right decreed to an American on our land. I was removed from my faith. And it's funny I say it that way because you're not allowed to have faith in Clark County Jail or prison. And I'm going to keep saying prison because that is the accurate and correct terminology. It took me months and months and months and months and months and months and months of learning a very few amount of things that I understand about the system. I'm told not to count on my jury, my peers. And I'm told not to count on the judge, the ADA, or my own lawyer. Not to count on any of the system. That's why I make this video today, because when I filed this grievance against the jail and I asked for what is called redress and refuge, and what that means is redress means administrative, if not governorship, senatorial review of things. Because policies, procedures, and legislative acts were crossed. And I was being told that we're just going to get away with it and you have to deal with it because of COVID. We're going to be able to treat you however we want. We're going to be able to do whatever we want to you. And because our computers don't give a crap about COVID and are going to write over your entire stay here, you now have to prove what you can't prove because, well, the computers got rid of it. And so every bit of evidence I had to show exactly every bit that happened to me, because I was in solitary confinement the entire time and under 24-hour surveillance CCTV, all the proof would have been right there, my entire stay, for all of you to see. But because nobody wanted to listen to me, nobody wanted to hear me out, because one, it was COVID, and two, it was running on a skeleton crew, and three, well, because my name's Kevin Quinn Fuller, and I'm disabled, so I'm not to be believed. Nobody wanted to listen to me, nobody wanted to hear me out. Nobody wanted to hold and stop that video for further review to actually see if I was telling the truth. And instead, I get to be told that I'm a monster, somebody not to be believed, and everything I say is a lie. It's not a lie. Not a stitch of those 18 pages. They may have far too many commas, they may have run-on sentences and, well, really shattered thought. Because it's taken an entire team to get me halfway back from what that jail did to me in those few days. I sat with men who come from very, very deep dark backgrounds who told me that Clark County Jail prison is the worst in the entire West Coast. And they know from intimate experience. I didn't know any proper words to use that are supposed to enact immediate response from my guards to then shuffle me up the command to make sure that this happened like it was supposed to, because I don't do jail. I don't do things to go to jail. I am not a jailbird. I wasn't even given the inmate handbook or manual. I actually had to Google it after I was released to ensure that what I knew was happening to me was wrong, and to address it by the proper numbers and violation numbers that are in the handbook. And since none of the commanders would listen to me, none of them would go through the proper process and channels and proceedings, and sent it to a tort through what is called risk management of Clark County, I then had to file a tort on all these things. And not being a lawyer or being able to afford one, I had no clue what I was doing, but I had to do it because in the inmate handbook it tells you that if you do not report these things, you are subject to prison time. So not only am I defending myself, but now I'm defending myself. And I'm defending myself. So I got trapped into a corner. I could either just let it go and then have some guard say this shit happened and then I'm arrested on a warrant for not speaking up on the matters, or I could speak up on the matters and then go to jail on a warrant because I didn't file it or state it correctly. So 18 pages, here we go. The rest of my life I could spend in prison if I don't word this correctly, and I'm sure I didn't. I'm really sure I didn't. But I started considering two things. One, was my life worth anything? And two, was all yours? And I decided, although that my county may not find my life, or my family may not find my life of value, to teach, and to train, to hold, to love, I decided that the younger generations were. Maybe not all of those of my same age, but those below mine. And that if this is a pattern of what we are teaching one another is okay, then I contemplated, how is our county even still alive? Because the last time I remember being in this jail, it was like 20 years ago. And it was 20 times worse than it was then. Not just because I was a child then and it just seems like an adult overwhelming, but for the fact that it was 20 times worse. The practices for teaching you and correcting you were so corrupt. And when you say these things to the risk management and various individuals, they say, well, welcome to Clark County. It's not supposed to be the Hilton. So I wonder, like, if we're going to belittle and bash and berate and bully and treat each other in all these corrosive fashions, how is somebody that they were so worried about, like me, who they thought that everything in my possession is a deadly weapon, going to take this corrective process and procedure back out into the outside world and use it? This female guard, because I was worried about accidentally exposing her to my genitalia, because they had me in what is considered a smock, which is a one-piece, somewhat looking bulletproof vest style thing held on with Velcro that falls off constantly, that barely reaches your nutsack anyways, and mine hang down about here, by the way. Same thing with my pecker. My shit barely is covered in a smock anyways. And I have to stand up to try and reach through a door and hold my crotch as such, so I don't expose this female guard to my genitalia and get charged with a crime. And as my smock starts to fall off, I fucking plop my ass down real quick on the seat because it's Clark County. I county where anybody could say anything about you and you could go up for life. Especially if you have any kind of record, whether it's a good one or a bad one, whether you did the right thing or you did the wrong thing, whether you walked up to the cops or you ran away. If you have a history, you're automatically guilty here. So never commit a crime, even if you're on the right side of the law. Never commit a crime. Never help your fellow man out. Never help your fellow woman. Because if you catch a charge for doing the right thing, you'll be automatically guilty the next time. I've seen this time and time again, and I am someone who was told by the cops, because you already have a history, we're already going to assume that you're guilty on this one too. That's just what they said. I never said anything to them that should have made me be arrested. I asked them to look for the evidence. I asked them to go to the houses that have cameras on them and ask them to review the recorded footage that faces my house before arresting me. They said, no. You've already been convicted before of a crime. I'm a guy that puts my life on the line for people that I care about, people I don't even know. I watched a guy fucking cut his leg off almost with a chainsaw, and I fucking jumped over a fence and almost lost my own leg because the guy got caught up and he got spiked through me just to go help this guy. But none of this stuff matters. Because why I'm talking about this now is in a week I could go to prison for 2 years plus or minus. Solitary confinement the entire time. And they expect me to come out in any way, shape, or form normal. And that's corrective teaching. And the same county that wants to put me away for these years has also decided, after the county took my right to work away, after the county took my right to my disability away, even wrote a letter to disability, which squashed all of my disability. I had to start it all over again, even my state, even my fucking food stamps, everything. No job, no food stamps, no state or federal aid, homeless. The state, the county, kind of like, what the fuck's going on here? They shouldn't have sent these letters. They shouldn't have done this. Spent a year and a half homeless, in toxic situations, abused left and right, spit on, told to go get a job, told to go die, told I was a drug addict even though I've been sober this whole time, told I was a mental homeless individual. All the while the county, after receiving my attempt at a tort, and I have it right here, tells me that they received it a year and 3 months before it was filed. Signed off by Emily Himpelman, Paul Herkert, and Jamie Zollner. And that date is 5 months before I was even arrested. And told me it was closed 60 days from the day of the letter. So they closed it 3 months before I was even arrested. I got signed copies, receipts of acknowledgement of receipt by Paul from Risk Management, August 16th, 2021. Additional filings received August 30th, 2021. And Gallagher says that they received it May 28th, 2020. And the date of loss, the date of loss, the day I was arrested, 10/4, October 4th, 2020. So, May, June, July, August, September, October. So 6 months before I was arrested is when they said that they received this acknowledgement of filing, which is a year and 5 months beforehand. Which tells you I spent a year during COVID trying to contact commanders, everybody that I was supposed to. Actually, it was like 90 days of trying to contact the jail and all of their personnel. And I got email copies and voicemails and copies that I've kept from the beginning. And they turned it over to the tort right after they started recording re-recording the CCTV. So I got copies of those emails, public records telling me that they started re-recording it all and that I took too long to try and contact them, which I've been trying to contact them since day one. And my audio recorded phone calls even suggest that I was even reaching out to other people who were legally bound to inform the government that I was being abused in jail and didn't do so. I even instructed my first attorney, who told me, good luck, I don't care about that. So yeah, this is all supposed to be bad juju, this stuff I'm telling you. This is all supposed to be, I could go to prison for a long time talking about this. They already want to put me in there. See, look at this. Hello, my name is Kevin Fuller. I'm a client to yours. I know you are currently working hard on other cases as well as mine, but before you begin, you must understand that I've been in fear since my time there in Clark County Jail. Fear to even write you this, but you need to know what's going on inside those walls. Not many cares for what happens to me, but there are people who do have loved ones who care about them. This may explain why so many come out with worse issues than they went in. For faster reading, I am hoping to have gotten this typed in time for your use. It's many pages of a journal I have been keeping since my release by bail. The really bad stuff is toward the end. My brain was so fractured coming out of there. I didn't know what day it was. I didn't know what time of the day it was. I was fucked up on a medication I didn't even know what is. Still to this day don't know what it is because they still haven't released it to me. As far as I know, I could have walked in front of a car when I got released from there, but it was the only way they were going to honor my bail that had already been paid. And the funny thing is now when you look at the records release, they've gone and changed a couple of things on it. And I think it's kind of funny because, like I said, it even says that it was changed. It tells you that it was changed and when it was changed. And it was changed after I was released from prison. So they went back through and they edited records after I was released. But they did acknowledge, this female guard did acknowledge that she took away my commissary for 2 weeks for not allowing her to see my genitalia. Because she didn't like my reaction to sitting down on the toilet really fast. She said she didn't like me because of the way I reacted. So she refused to give me toilet paper so I could wipe my ass and get off the toilet, and bullied and harassed me while she gave other inmates and another guard at the same time, other inmates toilet paper while still telling me I wasn't allowed any because they didn't like my reaction to not allow her to see my genitalia. Well, I'm sorry, ma'am, you didn't ask. If you would have asked, I would have kindly showed you it just so you could have seen it. But you denied me toilet paper. You acted like, in my opinion, a cunt. So I screamed and I yelled and I demanded the civil right to have toilet paper, and she came in and told me to wipe my ass with my own hand knowing I wasn't allowed sanitizer because it's considered a deadly weapon. No soap, no sanitizer, nothing to wipe my hands with when I'm supposed to wash, or to wash my hands with after I use the bathroom. So, I wasn't even allowed to sanitize, even if I was given toilet paper, because sanitary products were considered deadly weapons in my hands. My cell was covered in feces and food. Smeared food everywhere, all over the walls. Graffiti, gang signs, all kinds of shit. Moldy food stuck to the ceiling, all the ventilation plugged completely. I was forced to sleep on the floor on feces. And I asked that it be cleaned up, and I was told trustee services are suspended due to COVID. So what am I supposed to do, guard? Sleep on top of it? Well, I don't know really what to tell you, because I'm not allowed in there with you, because this is the policy and procedure of Rick Bishop. Because of COVID. Only law enforcement individuals were allowed to be protected. Only law enforcement individuals were allowed to have masks unless you were medical. Inmates were not allowed to have masks. They were considered deadly weapons. So I was not protected from the COVID either. So finally, this one guard had a glimpse of compassion. Asked me if he could trust me based on my classification to mop my own cell. I could choose to take a shower, try and contact somebody on the outside world if I was allowed to use the phone yet, or mop my cell. So I mopped my cell the best that I could, but the cells are so divoted, you can't get it out of the divots. You can just hope to get enough sanitizer down in there that it neutralizes bacteria. You don't get enough time to wipe the walls just to try and scrub the floor. So I put all this in my complaint, in my grievance, in my tort claim, if you will, because, well, it's an all-in-one at this point by the time I'm able to get it to risk management, because nobody else wants to hear me. Nobody else wants to talk to me. Because I'm no longer housed. I'm considered community custody. And the county's problem, the citizens. And this guy, I swear, who is probably on God knows what kind of pharmaceuticals he can get his hands on, comes out like a jitterbug and takes my filing, and like I said, he signs it like a respectful person should, considering the position I was put in, without being able to afford a lawyer or anything else, having to learn how to do this all on my own, and knowing that I'm probably going to jail for not filing it correctly. He signs it, and it gets submitted, and somehow the county and the people who oversee the jail and their actions, and as to whether or not they're correct or not, Gallagher Bassett, guide, guard, and go beyond is their motto, tells me that they could time travel 6 months before my arrest, close the case 60 days after their time travel, which is still 4 months before my arrest, and a year and 5 months before my filing against all of it that happened after I was arrested, and close the case. And so I am trying to figure out what I'm supposed to do, because I'm not a lawyer. I have none of these things. I'm disabled. I'm not even given a fair chance. I decide to make another filing for complete mismanagement of a PREA violation. 2 of them, to be exact. Because telling an inmate that you are not going to give them toilet paper because you do not like them based on the fact that their actions were to keep themselves from exposing them to you, and then telling them that you are not going to allow them to have toilet paper to wipe their ass with their own hand will violate so many codes of conduct of the Prison Rape Elimination Act that just one person and the fellow guard that continued to mock and bully me during this issue without standing up and stopping this is just one incident. And there's another incident. That these things are okay. They time traveled 6 months before I was arrested, basically saying that they're going to set in motion these things and accept that they're okay and allow them to happen. So I said, no folks, your time travel is not okay, allowing this to happen to me and saying that it's okay and that I just have to deal with it. I filed again. And this time I asked for redress and refuge, and I put a dollar amount on it. And, well, they sent me a letter back stating now that I filed that to just kind of remind them essentially that time travel is not acceptable to me. It's not acceptable at all that you're going to tell me that you can time travel 6 months before my arrest and then tell me that everything that happened is okay. So you sent me a letter back stating that Washington State no longer has jurisdiction over these legal matters. Your claim describes events that occurred outside the legal jurisdiction of the state of Washington. Our office does not have the authority to take action on any claimed allegations involving another entity. We are returning your original tort claim for your convenience. The state of Washington will take no further action on your tort claim. Sincerely, Office of Risk Management. So nobody wants to hear me out. Nobody wants to have a conversation. Nobody wants to deal with what happened. Nobody at all. And they tell me to buck up, Buttercup. So I'm bucking up the best that I can. Because they're going to get away with all of this. And then tell me that the only sanctuary I can have outside of my service animal is being taken away from me too. For however long they choose to take my right to freedom away. So I decided that I was going to send a copy of these filings and the state of Washington's response to 6 different newspapers and the feds. 3 of my letters to the feds got returned, and the 4th one has not returned. None of the filings or mailings that I sent to the newspapers have returned. For some reason, part of the county says I'm worth housing. I'm worth keeping warm. I'm worth keeping fed. I'm worth something. The Clark County Courthouse and Jail, the Clark County Corrections, Clark County Sheriffs, and the Vancouver Police Department. They stand behind time travel. They stand behind I'm guilty for anything and everything they can accuse me of or have been accused of. They stand behind taking my God-given sanctuary away. They stand behind taking my service animal away and not caring whether he lives or dies, and almost died 3 times. Trying to do his job and find his owner while I was incarcerated, that I fear for his life this upcoming week. We 3 are codependent on each other. I depend on the Bible depends on me. I depend on Nog, and Nog depends on me. And thusly, Nog depends on the Bible, and the Bible depends on Nog. I have been accused of affecting people's lives in a very positive way because of my addiction to my dog and the Bible. I've been accused of renewing faith where faith was lost because of my interpretations of the Bible. I've been accused of correcting false practices and deceit because of my interpretation of the Bible and returning people back to a new faith. I've been accused of giving people God again and Jesus. I've been accused of making Luther a friend and not someone to spite. I've been accused of making the Bible something worth listening to when read right. And I've been accused by the same people that want to see me thrown in jail as being the devil. Because I read the Bible with a new light. Very mad, very hurt, and very angry. And I am told I have no right to be. I'm told I have no right to be broken by what's been done to me. I've been told I have no right to be messy, to be loud, to be mad, to let it all out. I've been told that I must bottle it up and be perfect in the sight of my fellow man and woman. Otherwise, I might as well be seen as everything that I'm accused of being. I'm told that if I go in to court looking like I do these days, that I'll automatically be found guilty. I'm not even allowed to try and go in prepared for the battle of my life, to try and make it out to my service center, because I'll be found guilty. Let me ask you a question. Have you found sobriety in God because you come to the realization that by doing drugs, you put your own children, your grandchildren, the women in the streets that live around you. That you put the women and children on the streets that live around you upon the chopping block to child sex traffickers and worse because of your drug addiction. And you found solace in quitting by picking up the good book. And you realize that the vast majority of addicts around you are filling the coffers of those same people in one form or another. And they get rotated in and out of that prison, along with the child sex traffickers and the child touchers and everything else. And then you go and put a guy who spent the rest of his life sober because he would hate to have ever been a part of what caused his children or anybody else's child to be snatched up off the street right next to him. What the fuck do you think's gonna happen? You're gonna take my only sanctuaries away from me. For 2 years, put me next to them. You want me to live for 30 days? You best believe I've had to do some push-ups. Because I'm gonna let them know that they're dirtbag pieces of shit and every one of them's gonna want to kill me. Because every one of them would be forced to face the fact that their drug addiction stole children off of our streets, and I would never let them forget that. Two major drug sex traffickers of children were caught in Clark County recently because we invited them into our home for our drug addictions. It could have been my kids stolen off the street. It could have been my grandbaby stolen off the street. It could have been my sister's kids. It could have been my niece's kids. It could have been my cousin's kids. It could have been my best friend's kids. It could have been my neighbor's kids. There's been a lot of kids stolen off our streets. And the addicts, they sleep with fleas and lice and rats and mice, smelling of piss and urine to stay high, while filling the coffers of these individuals. Eventually, my simple reminding them of this fact would probably get me killed while I'm in there. Would I be able to keep my mouth shut? No. No, I wouldn't. Because I wouldn't be given a safe space to let it out. I wouldn't be able to be given a sanctuary to get away from it. So I have no clue what's going to happen. I don't. 2 years solitary confinement. 2 years fighting for myself. This is what goes on behind those walls. And anytime anybody files a complaint, they'll clean it up just enough that they'll pass inspection. They'll scrub it down with DNA disinfectant so that you can't tell that there's feces on the floor. They'll scrub it down with DNA disinfectant so you can't tell that there's moldy food lining the ventilation shafts, or graffiti and gang signs all over the walls. I mean, there could have been a murder in one of those rooms, and, well, they come through with DNA disinfectant. So, I don't know. It's really hard to figure out who to trust or what to trust, but I have faith. So to this might be the last video that I produce between now and then. So this may be the last video that I produce for the next couple of years. I don't know. But as the day gets closer, the less I get to talk to my counselors, the less I get to talk to my psychologist, the less I get to talk to my psychiatrist. And it's not because I'm not trying to, it's not because they don't want to, it's just scheduling. Most of my county has lost faith in anything that I say and are waiting to find out if I am guilty or innocent at trial and are standing by the wayside to be my friend, to give me consolement, to hear me out. This is my county. I didn't run. I haven't ever ran from this county for anything. So to this, I'm going to say I hope you all have a good night.